Hi, Facebook friends. This is Darryl Learie, and as you can tell, I haven't shaved for a while, so it's been a couple days. I don't like shaving, but I don't like having a beard either. So today, I got my kite string, 1,000 feet, with a breaking strength of 300 pounds. You can see that there. And it's braided Dacron, the most recommended string for kite flying. And I also got my altimeter today. This tiny little thing. It's going to measure how high I fly the kite. And it's got a little loop at the top there where my thumb is pointing to that you can tie the string through. And I've also have a mini DV camera that's about the same size, so that's something I'm going to use during low winds. I also have my iPhone 6, because right now I have the iPhone 6s Plus. And hey Matt, how are you doing? And with the iPhone 6, I can do data overlay, so as I fly the kite, the iPhone 6 will record in HD everything that it sees, plus it will have GPS coordinates and altitude and that type of thing. Plus I can overlay a map, and so I've got a fantastic app for doing that. I still have to make a picave though. Picave is like a board, and it's got like 4 tiny hooks or loops, and you thread string through it, and you connect that string on either end to the line, and it keeps the camera stable from moving too much this way or up and down or side to side, that type of thing. So what I'm really striving towards this year is trying to perfect my photography in my kite aerial photography and my kite aerial videos. With my iPhone 6, I'll be able to shoot at HD resolution at 60 frames per second, so that will be good for grabbing the odd shot. But if I grab the odd shot, then it's only going to be a 2 megapixel picture. But you can, with a 2 megapixel camera, you can capture a beautiful picture, because you got to remember, like, HD pictures on Facebook are only like 3 megapixels, maybe 5 at most, right? So but there's a lot of challenges, to taking the perfect shot. I went down to Millet a few days ago, and I took my 360 camera down there, and I took about 200 shots for Google Maps. I was going to make a virtual tour, and I was kind of off on the rhythm of it. It was a little bit trickier than I had anticipated. I'm trying to get my photospheres to auto connect within every 10 feet, and I'm still trying to find what's the fastest I can shoot at with my 360 camera, so I can shoot at shorter intervals and hopefully get it within 10 feet and have all my photospheres auto connect, and then that way I don't have to go through the challenge of creating a virtual tour by going into the app and connecting all the spheres manually. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but the shots in Millet came out pretty good. I think the trick is to keep your ISO low and keep your shutter speed high. If you want to capture like fast moving birds, you need at least 1/4000th of a second. For slow moving birds, 1/500th of a second. And with people walking, I think you can get away with 1/60th of a second. When I was down in Millet, I stayed there really late at night, and there was dark skies, and being such a small town, I was able to see the stars at night in the sky there. And I was able to use my iPhone 6s Plus to actually capture stars for the first time, using a shutter speed of 1/3 of a second. So I was really impressed with that. Um, I've got a Camera Plus app that allows me to set the shutter speed and ISO and the white balance. So um, I'm 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 looking to eventually experiment with some 360 um, uh, nighttime video. Watching the stars circle around during nighttime. But I've got to figure out what the best camera settings for that is, and I got to figure out how to put my 360 camera up in the air, which is going to be a bit challenging. Because it's controlled through the smartphone, and there's no way to engage interval shooting without it being connected to my smartphone. So the Wi-Fi range is going to be extremely limited to 30 or 40 feet, I think it is. So um, and eventually I'm going to be putting my 3D camera up in the sky too. Um, but I have to keep it perfectly level. So that might be a bit of a challenge. So it's all about trying to push the envelope and getting the perfect picture. For my iPhone 6, I made this wonderful container for it, and it's covered in 2 inches of foam. And on top of that, it's covered in 8 layers of large size bubble wrap. And I have done some tests before where I wrapped a raw egg in 6 layers of large bubble wrap and dropped it from 24 feet onto concrete, and the egg itself didn't crack. So with kite string that has a breaking strength of 300 pounds, now it's going to be very, very highly unlikely that my kite string will break even in strong winds. Even with my largest 9-foot kite, I'm still looking at as long as I have at least 62 pounds of breaking strength, I should be fine. So it's always better to be too cautious than not cautious enough, right? It's always best to have too many safeguards than not enough safeguards. So the only thing that can possibly go wrong is if the kite itself gets caught in turbulence and heads towards a crash on the ground. But I think that container, for the most part, will serve its purpose. But I still need a good kite reel to wind up the 1,000 feet of string that I have. And hey, Kaylin, how's it going? We'll have to get together sometime, eh? I never mentioned that. I think I have mentioned it on Facebook. That I'm going to be doing an anti-bullying speech on the legislative steps with Manwar Khan this summer. So I'm going to meet him later in April, which means that I'm going to try to get my speech done. I've only got 3 minutes to speak, so it's going to be it's going to be quite the challenge to attempt to move people with 3 minutes worth of words. And yeah, so most people know I've been selected to deliver my speech, so there'll be a few hundred people there. So I might get some media attention out of that. I don't know. I've only been in the local media a couple times uh, for my world record stuff and that. Um, so I took some 3D video of Millet last night, and I kept getting my goddamn fingers in the lenses because the 3D camera has two lenses, and I kept getting my finger in one of the lenses, and it just makes for like a terrible shot. So I had to delete so much of that footage before publishing it to YouTube. And then I got some awful sun glare. Um, so these are the kind of bugs I have to work out, you know. And I remember like right now on Google Maps, for example, I've got 3,604 photos that I've taken for Google Maps, and I took about 60 photos inside the legislative building, and they just turned out absolutely awful. Um, I had I had the shutter speed cranked up, you know, because I was walking with a tour group, and I had the ISO way up, so they all turned out really grainy and heavy, and I was just thinking to myself, do I even want to publish these or just wait till another time when I go there again? It was really hectic because I was taking 3D video of the tour and taking 360 pictures at the same time, but I have to hold the 360 camera, but but I also have to hold the smartphone camera at the same time while using the other hand to hold my 3D camera. Um, the 3D video actually turned out quite well, but um, though one thing I've done really well this year is I've pretty much perfected green screening. Um, the last two green screenings I did of my dancing turned out really well. They turned out really sharp in full HD. Um, One thing I still have to experiment more with is 3D green screening, but I've got the concept down anyways. And I know which 3D camera I'm going to use for that. Um, I've got to use my 1080p camera for the 3D green screening. Um, I'm just going to have to do a lot more research into photography because I really want to get some like perfect out of this world shots this summer. So um, me and my good friend Mark are talking about taking another canoe trip down the North Saskatchewan. So maybe that will be my second attempt to create a 10-mile virtual tour out of the North Saskatchewan and publish that on Google Maps. I don't know anybody, I haven't seen anybody yet who has more pictures on Google Maps than I have. Um, so one day I'll hit 10,000, but um, personally I have a personally speaking, I have um, I have a database of just over 15,000 pictures to my personal collection. So, um, and 3D is a bit tricky, because there's two formats to 3D, right? There's the 3D color anaglyph, which is the one that requires you to put on the red and blue, red and cyan 3D glasses to view in 3D. But there's also the side-by-side 3D, where you have to use the cross-eyed method to perceive it without the glasses. And it appears to me that I have to use two totally different techniques to benefit one or the other. As far as the color anaglyph, I can do that with my Fuji camera. But for the side-by-side, I have a homemade tripod that holds both my iPhone and my other iPhone, and I can take pictures simultaneously, and they create like fantastic side-by-side pictures. Um, and then there's a bit of work about, to do with how to display them on Instagram. Right now on Instagram, I've got about 709 photos. So, um, and I've got the business account, so I'm keeping track of how many views and reach I have. Um, I've got to update my stats on Wednesday. I've got a website on my website. I've got a blog where I have all my social media statistics. You know, my Facebook records, my Twitter records, my YouTube records. This type of thing. Um, all the metrics that have to do with every social media that I'm involved with. Um, but 360 is particularly hard to display on Instagram because they haven't implemented 360, and I don't know if they can, because my 360 camera, for example, the Theta S takes 14 megapixel pictures. Now, um, now the resolution of Instagram is far less than that of 14 megapixels. Um, it is, I think, 1080 by 1080. I could be wrong about that. It used to be like 640 by 640. So, so if they were to allow 360 pictures, then they would have to greatly improve the resolution of Instagram. And of course, a lot of my 3D work I don't show on Facebook here because there's no format for it, and it's not too many of my Facebook friends are 3D fans, so I don't know how many people have the glasses or how many people know how to look at a side-by-side 3D picture. But yeah, getting the perfect picture, that's what it's all about. Want to get my photography right at top edge, you know what I'm saying? And there's just so much thinking that's involved, and because I'm basically poor, there's a lot of creativity that's required on my part to improvise for things that I could have just bought if I had the money. The whole capping rig, for example. Like, I'm gonna be using a homemade picavay, but well, I've got a friend that's making one for me, but I mean, if I just wanted to dish out, $80 to $100 or $160, I could have bought a professional picavay, for capping. The string alone cost me $42, and it's another $75 for the altimeter. So I mean, this stuff does cost money, but you know. So aside from that, it's all about capturing the perfect shot, the money shot, and that's what's going on with me. I've got to. I'll probably bring my bike out to Canadian Tire tomorrow and get the tires pumped up, and then I have to put the camera brace on it so I can mount cameras on it when I go bike riding. So some experimenting is required, but yeah, it's just a lot. I've got some pictures on my computer that I have to index to my database, and Yeah, I have to go to the dollar store and buy some rings and hooks and things like that tomorrow. So, but I gotta figure out which winds are the best winds, you know. Um, I don't want to get horribly gusty winds, but I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of summer days where I get winds of at least 10 to 15 miles per hour. I don't know offhand what that is in kilometers. I don't really use kilometers. Um, and maybe top off at 20 miles per hour, you know. Um, but hopefully I'll get steady streams, you know, and not get winds that change direction and find out later where I can go from my altitude records. You know, I gotta find out more about that. Because Transport Canada puts the rules out for altitudes and how high you're allowed to fly a kite or a drone or any of these type of things. I'm not going with the drone thing. There's far too much legislation about drones and too many drone bans. And right now, my city of Edmonton wants to ban all drone activity within the city limits. So, anyways, I'm gonna let you guys go, but that's what's going on. Later.